We are a part of social groups. As human beings, it's in our nature to come together. Have you ever been excluded from a group? Whether it is exclusion from a conversation, not getting an invitation to something, or just being shut out from a friend, being ignored or excluded causes a reaction. That reaction may affect how effectively you communicate with other people. My name is Shelby Kowalski, and I'll be addressing the topic of nonverbal reactions to social exclusion. If an individual is excluded from a social interaction, such as a conversation, they will react with increased levels of sadness, and it indicated through their facial cues. I will be applying this concept in an interaction with my boyfriend and a coworker. So 3 things I'll be covering in this presentation will be the nonverbal reactions of people that occur when social exclusion happens, how sadness is associated with nonverbal expressions, and how social exclusion doesn't necessarily result in numbness and social disengagement, but rather in an emotional reaction such as sadness, which can be associated with social disengagement and lowered energy levels. So the title of my article is Comfortably Numb: Nonverbal Reactions to Social Exclusion. It's about the nonverbal reactions of people who are being excluded during a discussion and how it's associated with sadness. It examined their reactions, which included their facial cues and change of mood. A term that you need to know to understand this article is the numbness hypothesis, which states that individuals who are being excluded may not display overt, meaning noticeable or obvious, signs of distress, but may lack an emotion and appear lethargic, indifferent, or numb instead. This is the theory that the article is challenging. So there are a few topics from our course that this article relates to or expands upon. First, nonverbal communication from Chapter 2, which is any communicative behavior other than written or spoken language that creates meaning for someone. Another is facial cues from Chapter 2, which is the channel of nonverbal behavior from which you're able to communicate by producing over 250,000 different expressions. And lastly, small group communication from Chapter 1, which is the area that attempts to analyze communication between 3 to 15 people who meet to interact with a common purpose, to solve a problem, to make a decision, or to just have fun. This relates to the article because the experiment involves 3 individuals coming together to do what they are told is to solve a problem. So the researcher had a hypothesis, which was the nonverbal behaviors of people who are being excluded during an interaction would not be indicative of numbness, but indicative of emotions such as sadness that are generally associated with decreased energy levels and social disengagement. They had some questions as well, which was, does sadness and depression cause social withdrawal and inclination to turn inward? And if someone is excluded, will they experience increased levels of sadness? The findings largely confirmed the researchers' expectations. So the participants that were excluded in the experiment reported lower average mood levels after the experiment manipulation when compared to the mood levels beforehand. They also displayed more sadness and less joy during the experiment than what they were feeling before it. And there was no such difference found in the people who were involved in the inclusion portion of the experiment. Although the people excluded were reportedly sad, they didn't seem to psychologically disengage from the social interaction that they were told to focus on, such that the numbness hypothesis would suggest. So this observation proves the researchers' hypothesis to be correct. So I chose to focus on the interpersonal relationship between my boyfriend Jacob and I. The communication issue is involving small group communication, since there's at least 3 people involved. We work together, so we're often involved in conversations with a few other people. When he's talking to other people and ignoring me, I intentionally or not, I definitely get sad and frown a lot. However, I don't look down and stop talking. I continue to try and contribute to the conversation. I'm used to his attention, so getting ignored gets a reaction out of me. On the other hand, I often ignore him in conversations involving 3 or more people as well. So after researching and learning more about the nonverbal reactions of social exclusion and how it can impact your communication, I'm beginning to view the tendency to ignore my boyfriend in small group communication in a new and more evolved way. So I've learned that from this article that my sad reaction to being excluded in social situations isn't unique. It's actually a very common reaction to social exclusion. And I've learned that your mood can literally turn from sad to sad from exclusion, and it's not always an exaggeration. I've also learned that I can control my mood by not reacting as much to being ignored and not taking things too seriously, so I don't let the sadness affect me so much that it does decrease my energy levels and cause social disengagement. So you can tell someone is sad just from their facial cues. Sadness is associated with things such as narrowed eyes, pulled down corners of the lips, and a closed downward posture. This can result from social exclusion. Social exclusion can cause a person to react in many ways. In this presentation, I highlighted the main effects social exclusion can have on a person, both physically and mentally.